All right, guys. There's 4 things that you can talk about when you're talking with the adjuster without stepping over the line into unauthorized practice of public adjusting. You can point out damage, right?
Yeah.
You can talk about what type of building material this is. This is copper gutter. I know that it's painted, but it's copper. Look, I scraped it right here. Look, it's copper. You can talk about what type of building material it is. That's construction stuff, right? All these things are construction stuff I'm talking about, okay? You could talk about your method of repair and how you arrived at your conclusion that it's reasonable. And you can answer any technical questions they have in regard to construction. Why do you need to detach and reset the siding to have the sidewall flashing there, or head wall flashing? And you can answer those technical questions. Those are the things, when you're talking with the adjuster, those are the things you can discuss. Those are all construction things. You can talk about construction all day long. What you can't talk about is you owe for this. Now you're talking about coverage, and you've gone over the line. Now John come up during the break, and he for those of you who don't know, John Burt, he used to be the president of NTRCA. So he's been doing this, what, 50 years? No, I'm just kidding.
Younger than you.
He's been doing this a long time. And he had a Safeco Liberty Mutual adjuster, and you know those guys are tough to deal with. And he's going to tell you how he was able to hit his number. John, you want to share that?
Just real simple. I mean, as you know, different insurance carriers, they all have their own rules. I mean, you get 10 carriers, the exact same thing, using the exact same Xactimate prices. You get 10 different scopes. We all know that Liberty Mutual and Safeco is kind of on the lighter end. Anyway, I had a very steep 12-12, a lot of valleys, a lot of hips and stuff. And I had a field adjuster that wrote 13% waste, which was just utterly ridiculous for what it was. Well, I calculated waste and waste alone, calculating valley waste, rate cut, hip and eaves, and all this. Came up with my own, came up with thing. And finally I got just mono a mono with a reasonable, nice person. And I know how Safeco works. And I said, so can you talk off the record, just guy to guy? I said, sure. I know your manager, your boss is going to audit your file, lows for you to pay for A, B, and C. What can you do to help me get to my number without paying for A, B, and C? I said, well, I can increase that waste factor a whole lot. You went to his terms, and we're simply talking scope, we're not talking policy coverage, but he was able basically lop off my starter strip and ridge separately stated. But he did have the authority to really up the waste factor on a steep cut-up roof. And he bumped me up to a 20% waste factor and got me to my number, which was, you know, I'm going Liberty Mutual. I did a dance when I hung up. It was just
He hit his number.
But I conceded to the guy, I know your boss who audits your files, really am going to let you go here. Where can we go?
Does this make sense, guys? Yeah, no. What can you do? Just if you're being reasonable, then that gives them the ability to be reasonable. Because you're being reasonable also. What can you do? Make sense? All right. Oh, so someone asked at the break, where can we get all your paragraphs that you spent 19 years writing? See, so what happened is doing insurance appraisals, you know, that's that alternative dispute resolution, right, where you circumvent the claims department. I've been doing those for about 20 years. I've done almost 2,000 of them. And I would write these macros. What do you call them?
Well, it depends. I call it a template. Because I use this, combo of the most common in a Xactimate file that I duplicate and then alter.
So maybe I have a residential hail loss macro, and I have a residential wind loss macro, and I have a TPO macro, and an EPDM macro, and a metal roof macro. And so when I get one of those losses, I just duplicate the macro, put the client's name and information in there. I delete the line items that don't apply to this loss. Instead of writing the estimate from a blank scratch, I just take out the things that don't apply. I adjust my quantities, and I'm done. I've already got all this stuff written because over the course of 19 years, I sat down and wrote purpose and function, purpose and function, purpose and function. And I figured out, clever ways of writing things so that it makes sense to people. And no, you can't have it for free. Sorry.
What's your price?
I'm teaching, you can't, no price. This is proprietary.
I'll hold them down if you're fast. You can
So what I'm doing is I'm teaching you how to do it, right? And so now, if you want to hire Adam's company, Estimates Made Easy, he's got all this stuff already built in already, then you can hire him and he'll write your estimates and you'll have it for free.
Well,
free.
Well, for the cost of the estimate. Yeah. So there's my shameless plug of the day in answer to your question. All right, so, yeah. So I have an entire chapter in my book teaching you how to write this stuff, how to write a smart estimate, and how to create your own macros, and how to do it so you don't have to use us. I teach you how to create it and what to say and how to say it and those sorts of things. And if you prefer to just rest on our laurels, then you can hire Adam and do that. So here's an example. So let's say that you have a loss and they have a metal shed in the back and the hail has damaged the roof. You can't replace the roof. You've got to replace the whole metal shed, right? So what do you put in your estimate? R&R shed? What else are you doing besides removing and replacing the shed? Is there a delivery charge? Are you charging for that, or are you doing that for free, paying for that out of pocket? Okay. Wood fence, detach and reset the fence. You have to take down a section of fence. Depending on the size of the shed, you may have to take down 2 sections of fence and pull up a post. And you got to replace the post, right? Are you putting this stuff in your estimates? Then there's the cost of the shed. Haul off debris, you got to haul off that shed, right, to the dump. My point is, you got to think, what am I doing? What labor, all these things that I'm doing, am I accounting for it in my estimates so that everything is included that's legitimate and reasonable? I'm actually doing these things. If you're not doing a porta potty, then don't put a porta potty on there, because if you do, that's called insurance fraud, right? But if you are, then include it in all your estimates. Does this make sense? All right. This is really important. This is the entire next section I'm going to talk about here. So if you go into Xactimate, down into the line item description, it says this: Xactware publishes prices as close to the midpoint of the market as possible. As a result, generally half of the providers in each market will be priced higher and half lower than the cost shown here. So if they're charging $100, if they're saying that a good price is $100 per unit of whatever, $100, that means that when they go out and call around the contractors and get the prices, that they're getting somewhere between 80 and 120 or 50 and 150, and then it's averaging out at $100. Half of the providers are higher, half are lower. Got it? All right. Do they tell you what the spread is? No. Okay? How many people here have ever been called by Xactimate? 1, 2. Oh, a couple. Okay. So they actually do some of that. You want to come up and explain that sometimes, actually, some of their pricing isn't from contractors. They're actually getting the pricing from adjusters. That means that it's not based on real construction costs. is based on what some adjuster believes is the construction cost and estimates it at. You want to explain that? Sure. He can explain it. He was telling me yesterday at the trade show, and he can explain it to you far better than me.
Thanks, Steve, for the opportunity to do that. Steve is just tireless in his efforts to help our industry. One of the guys appreciate all of his significance, our work with both. He's traveled out with both anybody. Just to order, I think this is the level thing. I recall,
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
oh,
That way it should take it forward.
okay. Here, real quick. So, I'd like to, does it sound good? Can you hear it? Everybody hear me all right? I'd like to talk about the pricing issue because a lot of us have a misnomer that Xactware actually sets the price. They do to a certain extent, but really you guys, like Steve had mentioned before, are in the driver's seat. And what we do with our company, we're Xactimate Mastery. I'm out of Utah. In fact, I'm about 15 minutes from Xactware. And I have a meeting planned Tuesday, by the way, if you guys want to weigh in, with the head of pricing department, Greg Pine. So I can take some of those concerns, like you had mentioned earlier, about the felt paper and
Or the spread.
Yeah.
It's the spread.
yeah. Well, and that's
That would be useful information.
and here again, it varies because you have to understand they're doing this every month. It's on a monthly basis. They tabulate all this stuff. There's about 80 professionals in that pricing department that have varying degrees of licensure and significant, status. And what they do is they use a top-down approach and a bottom-up approach to arrive at a price. What does that mean? Well, kind of picture a box. And the bottom-up approach is where they actually call contractors. I saw a few of your hands. And just by the way, you guys can get on our list to be called. So I'll talk more to Greg tomorrow about how to do that more effectively. I'll have more information. You guys are welcome to take my card and keep in touch. But anyways, the bottom-up approach is where they actually call contractors, suppliers, and equipment providers. And they put together a price based on that. Then they double-check it with their unit price, which is estimates that have been completed, but mostly are coming from adjusters in the Exact Analysis system. So Exact Analysis is an intranet inside of Xactware. So you have the internet, which is global, but you have Exact Analysis, which is an intranet inside of Xactware. It's kind of like you have an email address with Xactware once you subscribe. So by means of an insurance company sending out an assignment to an outside adjuster, whether it's an IA or a staff adjuster, it goes through this cycle and whereby they scrub off those prices that they have determined for that estimate. But you can see right off that by and large it stays stagnant because the adjusters use the same price, which is the average price that Xactware has. So a paper that is available to you guys, and it's a report, talks about the influence that they have, that is the adjusters. It's parties that uploaded estimates to Exact Analysis. So basically, if you guys would upload through this electronic means your estimates with prices that you see necessary. So just for example, we've seen 5 price hikes since May in shingle prices, right? Well, Xactware at best, it's like hitting a moving target. They can't publish it unless this happens. You guys are aware of it, but maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, then it's finally published. But you do have the means to increase those prices at the component level within your price list and then distribute it to the people in your organization. Tyler and I talked about this. Reinhardt Roofing's here. In fact, that's why I'm here, because I became a member through them. They've received our training, side note. But anyways, you're in the driver's seat. And go ahead.
The suppliers, we've had 20 to 25% material increases in the last 6 months. Why the pricing is completely stagnant on the components. It's very clear and well documented across, that the material prices have significantly increased. The suppliers send it. The suppliers send it.
That's right. Exactly right.
I mean,
but because they publish it once a month, you got that lag time, which you guys can put in and increase the price.
6 months ago, these started, and the pricing is not changing.
So you guys have 3 means to address that. You can email Xactware at pricing@xactware.com. That's one way. Second way is to call the pricing department. They have to answer your question within 24 hours, by the way. It's 800, you got a pencil, 424-9228, and you'll ask for pricing.
One more time?
800-424-9228. The third way is to do it electronically, which is really easy. All you have to do is complete your report and go to the feedback section under tools and just hit the feedback option, and it sends it automatically when you connect to the internet. So that's the best way to do it. But what the paper has shown is your lack of involvement. This is eye-opening. It's actually, it's pretty staggering when you look at the statistics. So we've got a pie chart here, and basically it shows who's weighed in electronically from that top-down approach. Turns out, staff adjusters, 63%, right? Independent adjusters, 26%. So why are the numbers stagnant? You got about 90% of these people weighing in on the top-down approach. And to our shame, contractors are 5%, mitigation providers 5%, and specialty contractors, that's probably roofers, 1%, 0.6 actually. So it behooves us to get more involved in trying to get the prices up in our area legitimately, like you're saying, and you can back it up. I love documentation because that's what they work on. So if you see that immediately if a price rises, you need to be contacting Xactware and changing it in your component level, and I train you how to do all that. I'm a certified trainer, by the way. There's about 34 of us in the country now, but we have the basis of doing that, and then also we offer courses. Aline is the co-founder of Xactimate Mastery, and I don't think there's anyone better, maybe Adam, but in writing an estimate. She made one contractor 400.
I ain't perfect.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't say that.
But it's not uncommon on these supplements for a company that's doing quite a bit of volume. Lena made one company $469,000 of found money that they never would have had otherwise. So we train you how to do that using best practices. And Alina's got a real high IQ, and I don't hold a candle to her. She can pump out an estimate so quick, it's just laughable. But we do train you how to do that. We've got a membership, and anybody in here members? I know.
They're fantastic.
All right, thank you, sir. And yeah, that's why I sit by the door. I sit next to them. But Amy Feller was here too, and they're part of our membership, and they have really grown as a result. But the conclusion then is that in this price, it's not really a war, but in getting your prices up, and like Steve said earlier, this method, you've got the top down and the bottom up, it puts it into an algorithm that's overseen by a doctorate level mathematician and economist. So they're always looking at this thing, and they're checking the bottom up method against the top down. And if they find an anomaly, then they call further. But what you guys can do is send this information in as it happens, real time, and they will respond to you. In fact, like I said, I'll take your concerns to Greg, a few of those, because we have a meeting Tuesday with Greg Pine, and anything that you guys have on your mind, I can take to Greg. We're 15 minutes from Xactware, and by the way, I used to work there, so I know all the guys down there. So, but they try to stay as neutral as possible, but sometimes they can get skewed one way or the other. And I think this is the best probably published example of how
skewed they are.
Yeah, this is their 2000. Yeah, exactly. Well, this is their 2016 report, which is published by Xactware. So if you go look for it.
If that's true and that's 100% accurate, I mean, obviously Xactimate's putting that out, so who knows, but it's our fault that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which
Thank
is a
you.
little bit frustrating.
How would
Yeah.
you know?
Huh?
I'm sorry, but how would you even know that you need to be talking?
And that was my next question.
They didn't advertise.
This is my third ARCAT, not the ARCAT Perfect, or, I mean, I've been doing this for a while, but I've never heard that.
Yeah.
Never even knew that we could do that.
That's right.
So it's not out there.
Yeah.
So we need to, as a group, figure out how to get that out there
Yeah.
to get our prices. I'm like you, Steve, I want what we deserve. I'm not
That's
looking
right.
to make, just like the roof, obviously that's the goal of business, but I just want to make what we deserve, and there's a lot of jobs that we're looking at, especially this year, it's like, I mean, we're at 15%, how do we end up at 15%? And then it's the Xactimate.
So I'm going to show you some other ways to actually adjust for that when they're sluggish in just a moment. All right? Join our Facebook forum, which I'm going to show you how to do in just a moment. And we'll have you come on the forum and explain the 3 different ways that you guys can then upload your pricing to Xactimate so it can be reflected across everything. So let's say that the spread on some unit, they're saying it's $100, is somewhere between 80 and 120, let's say. We don't know what it is, but let's just use those numbers, nice round numbers, okay? So, did you decide, you, the business owner, decide that I'm going to price the work that I perform at the midpoint of this market in DFW? Did you make a conscious decision to do that? So, where do you price? I mean, obviously, half of the contractors here in DFW are higher than this price and half are lower. So where do you want to be? Who decides that? You do. Apple sells their computers at the 100th percent. Maybe the gamers are more expensive. Gaming computers are more expensive than Apple computers. So they've made a conscious decision to price their products where? At the top of the market. And there are people that price their computers at the bottom of the market. So where are you going to decide as the owner of your business to price your stuff? Who makes that decision? Does the carrier decide for you? Do you decide the premium that they're charging for their insurance products? No, you don't dictate to them the premium that they should be charging. Why not? Because it's none of your business. And it's none of their business what you charge as long as you're not gouging. Now, if you're accusing me of gouging, that's a crime. Call the State Attorney General's office right now and report me. But if you're not saying I'm gouging, then this is my price. This is the deal. Just tell them the facts. I'm performing the work. I'm doing it for a legitimate and reasonable price. I've put together an estimate that reflects, that explains and justifies my price. All right? The consumer is going to be paying me for the work. So either you're going to indemnify them or you're not. That's between you and them. That's none of my business. You see what I just did? I just outlined, these are the facts. These are the facts. They're going to pay me, and either you're going to indemnify them or they're not. So let's take a look at this. So let's say that Xactimate is saying $350 a square for roofing, let's say. Okay? Let's say that 50% of the market is doing it somewhere between $350 and $250, and 50% between $350 and $450. Where do you, as a company, want to come in at in that scale? I can tell you that we do insurance appraisals. Okay? We're at the 80th percentile. That means there's 80% of the appraisal companies out there doing work cheaper than us, and 20% are doing it higher than us. That's a conscious decision that we decided when we set our pricing. We think we get excellent results, so we charge for that. What kind of work do you do? Do you do mediocre average work? Then you should probably charge a mediocre average price. If you do work that's above average, then what should you be charging for your work? I don't know. You decide. I don't decide. Xactimate doesn't decide. The insurance companies don't decide. You decide. Don't you? I mean, don't the business owners decide what work? And then if you charge too much, then you won't get any work, will you? Right? Isn't that market influence? Isn't that the way it works? So let's say you decide to come in at the, let's just say that, nice round numbers, you decide to come at the 75th percentile. Let's just say. Because that's the type of work, above average work that you do. You make that conscious decision. So instead of charging $350 a square, what are you going to charge? $400 a square. Does Xactimate decide what price you're going to charge for the work that you perform? Xactimate's not doing the work. Insurance company's not doing the work. You're doing the work. So let's say you decide you're going to come in at the 75th percentile. How do you show that in Xactimate so that you're getting paid at that rate? Can they require you to work at $350 a square? No, because that's called price fixing. You're not a regulated business like like the utility companies, they tell like the insurance companies, they're a regulated business. They're told what they can charge for their premiums. They're told when they can do premium increases because it's a regulated business. Are you a regulated industry like the utility companies and insurance companies? No. So from Xactimate, Xactware, we talked about this. We already read that paragraph. So here's a letter that you can send in that justifies your prices. Our company is under no obligation to price our work at the midpoint 50th percentile of our market. We have elected to do what a full 50% of the contractors in our market do and price our work above the midpoint 50th percentile. You notice that I'm using the language right out of Xactimate. The midpoint 50th percentile. In fact, we have elected to price our work at the 75th percentile. As a result, generally 25% of the providers in our market will be priced higher and 75% lower than our pricing. It can hardly be said that charging less than a full 25% of the contractors in our market is overcharging or gouging the consumer. You like the way that's written? We have no contractual obligation to insurance carriers. We do not work for carriers. We work for you, the client. You pay us for the work. You write the check, and your contract with the carrier property policy indemnifies you, makes you whole. No carrier has the authority to force pricing on us, or any contractor for that matter. They do not dictate our pricing any more than we dictate what they charge their clients for their products and services. Unlike insurance companies, we make no attempt to force them to change any of their pricing or attempt to tortuously interfere with their contractual relations. If any insurance carrier attempts to dictate the price that we perform our work for, especially attempting to force us to work for Xactimate midpoint 50th percentile pricing, which again, according to Xactimate, half the providers in each market will be priced higher and half lower, we will consider this price fixing, which is an antitrust violation. Now, I quote the Sherman Act from the U.S. Department of Justice. Price fixing, bid rigging, and other forms of collusion are a violation of the Sherman Act, are illegal and are subject to criminal prosecution by the Antitrust Division of the U.S. Department of Justice. Under the law, price fixing and bid rigging schemes are per se violations of the Sherman Act. This means that where such a collusive scheme has been established, it cannot be justified under the law by arguments or evidence that, for example, that agreed upon prices were reasonable, the agreement was necessary to prevent or eliminate price cutting or ruinous competition, or the conspirators were merely trying to make sure that each got a fair share of the market. The maximum Sherman fine is $100 million for corporations and $1 million for individuals. And the maximum Sherman Act jail sentence is 10 years in prison. Under some circumstances, the maximum potential fine may be increased, blah, 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 blah. And I have the link here. They can see that I copied it word for word. How would you like to include that along with your pricing for 75% of the market rate? You like that?
I want to get 100 million.
You want to send him to prison. We're going to talk about that this afternoon too. About actual when insurance representatives and engineers commit insurance fraud, that they're sent to prison. I'm going to tell you that that's happening and how to join that.